Hello and welcome to my imperfect knitting life. I should actually rename this my crazy mill life, but anyway, we'll just keep it my imperfect knitting life. It's a podcast where I talk about my knitting, but I also talk about my mini commercial spinning mill, which I bought. I bought that about 3 years ago, and through my videos I have actually kind of journaled and talked about my progress learning to make yarn in the mill and what I'm up to. So welcome back. So I'll start off with 3 completed objects. So I'm wearing the first one, which is a Ranunculus by Midori Hirose, one of the most popular patterns on Ravelry. And I think this is the first one, let me get it up close, where I have done the entire pattern without errors. Miracles for me. And I used one of my own yarns, which is Curious Crimson. It's a Corriedale and Gotland blend, and it's about 170 meters per 100 grams. I did knit it on a 6mm needle like in the pattern. And I also did a 3/4 sleeve. Well, this is looking a bit like a half sleeve to me, but technically a 3/4 sleeve. And I also did the I-cord binder for that. Now, I don't like it super loose, to be honest, and you'll notice that with basically everything that I knit. I prefer a more fitted feel to my garments, and overall I'm really happy. And this took less than 350 grams of yarn. So yes, a real classic and another Ranunculus to add to my little collection, and one that's actually not a short sleeve for a change. I don't think I've ever done a long sleeve one, but that could be in the future, a little long sleeve one. But it's really nice, it's not overly heavy, and for that sort of intermediate weather. A lot of people don't love Gotland in New Zealand, and I really like it. I have a Gotland, and I've also bought so much Gotland. It's stacked up in my shed, and I really like it as a fibre. But you know, each to their own. So that's called Curious Crimson, and oh, how many have I got left? Don't even know how many got left. Maybe 12. Woolfest is this weekend, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So we'll see what actually comes back from Woolfest, but that'll be the last of it gone. The second garment I want to show you, I probably have, just hang on while I do a little change. Here we go. The second garment I want to show you is a Carbeth Cardigan. And there's a little story actually to the yarn on this. So when I was playing around with all the numbers, and I think this would be last year, probably last year, I had this beautiful Polworth and I spun it up on the mill, and it just came out really chunky because it would not, just wouldn't spin unless I actually had the settings on a thicker yarn. And I ended up with this. Now that basically I put to one side, and I said nobody's going to want slubby chunky yarn, but guess what, people do. This I think is such a big learning curve, because you know, I'm thinking most of the world wants 4-ply or fingering weight, they want to do colour work, they want to do this, but there actually is, or there are people who want to knit chunky yarns. This is such a soft yarn, and this particular pattern, the Carbeth Cardigan, it's by Kate Davies, and I've made it. I think this is the 3rd one I've made, and it is a very quick knit, and that's the advantage of thick yarns. So it's the Carbeth Cardigan. Here it is here. I have one thing that I don't like about it, and I'll change because I'm going to make myself another one, and I'll make a longer body, because I think this is made for, you know, high-waisted garments, but I don't wear a lot of high-waisted garments. There are some fabulous features about this pattern. So the first thing I do want to say is I knit it, and I got it to gauge with I call this Misty Blue, and it's a Polworth, very slubby, and it's about 110 meters per 100 grams, which is maybe 120 yards per 100 grams, I think. But I actually knit it up with some hand-dyed mohair that I had. And this is the finished product. So I'm going to show you another garment that I knit in the Misty Blue, and that doesn't have the mohair, and you'll see this definitely has more of a slight blue tinge to it. Now the Carbeth Cardigan, I mean, I'm sure lots of people have knit this, but it's a bottom-up construction. And so you basically, I'll show the schematic but nothing else, but you basically, you do the hem and then you knit up to the arms, then you do the sleeves, you knit up to the armpits again, and then you join it. Once you've joined it, hopefully I've got dye all over my fingers, sorry. Once you've joined it, you actually do on every row a reduction all the way until you get down to a certain number of stitches. And so the same on the front as the back. So you'll see here at the back there's a V, and the same at the front as well. And it is just such a nice detail in terms of how the garment looks, but it's also really nice construction detail. It really does help keep that pattern or that garment nice and firm. Once you've actually done the once you've finished off at get to the neck, then you do the two bands, and they are finished with an I-cord bind off as well, and one of them has little buttonholes that are added. They're like little loops, I don't know how to explain it, but it's all the I-cord bind off. And then you do the neck, which is folded over, and I can't even remember if I sewed it, and it's not even that long ago I did this, a couple of weeks. Now the last thing, and this is a typical Jenny thing, is I need to add the buttons, and I cannot find enough of the right kind of buttons, but I did find these little suckers, and I bought those. Is that there? I bought those when I was in California with Patrick at Legends. So they're beautiful little vintage toggles, and I think I might use those. But I just love how this sits up here. Now I did actually do, to be honest, I did do the third size, but I think it's ended up being more like the second size once I finish. But it's, I don't have anything under here, and it's a lovely soft garment. So there are definitely some things I've improved. So that's the second item. I've got one more to show, and then we'll talk about the mill and the yarn. The third thing I want to show you is another one made in the same yarn, Misty Blue, and it is called Splot, and that is by Caitlin Hunter. This is the pattern by Caitlin Hunter, Splot. Now mine is a little different to that, and there's a few reasons. So I didn't quite knit it to gauge. I got the stitches, but I didn't get the rows. And to be perfectly honest, I think Caitlin Hunter does the halibut, and I just found that was too low, and I didn't really like that. So I thought, oh, this could work to advantage, and guess what? It absolutely did. So you can see here, by the time she's done her body work, colour work, she's just about ready to cast off. I have got a lot of extra underneath that. So just wait here. I'm going to go and get it on, and I'll show you, and it'll be back to the new one. Okay, here's the Splot, and it really is a little bit damp, but I have washed it and blocked it because I would like to wear it to Woolfest on Saturday. And like I say, this is Misty Blue, which is about 110 meters per 100 grams. And I didn't actually have, because the one you can actually see here, they've got a really bright color contrast, and I thought, oh, maybe I should try and get a bright color. So I had like this beautiful, it's called Sundance Yellow, but it's quite a sandy yellow, and I thought, no, that is not bright enough. So I dyed it up myself, which is one of the advantages of having your own mill or having your own workshop. And that's it. I haven't got any more of that color, but I did do it. It's kind of a mustardy color, mustardy orange. but I love it. So it's a lovely pattern to knit, and you start at the neck. There's a bit of a short row shaping at the back, and then you get into the color work. And these are either cacti or they kind of remind me of chromosomes. But anyway, yes, so it was very quick. I don't even think this took me a week, and it was on a 6mm needle for the bodywork, and just a lovely knit. This yarn is so soft, so you can see here, if I show you, that's with the blue mohair in it, and then that is just the grey blue, Misty Blue I called it. So you basically knit the yoke, then you separate for the sleeves and do the body work, the colour work. The one modification I made was, again, thank you Calypso Knits, Black Cat Knits, I added, can you see it there? Short row shaping at the back, because I like that to come down a little bit. I do love the cropped look at the front. Again, I did not make mine oversized. I prefer it to fit a little bit. So there you go. That is Splot. I'm really happy with that. I did actually want to show you. So last year, year before, I was making super thick yarns, and so that was one of them. But I did have some other ones, and they really give you some ideas in terms of colours and stuff. So I do have some thicker yarns. Like this one's a little bit firmer. There's no there's not really any slubs in this one. It's got quite a high twist. It will keep its shape really well, but you know, this one's got some slubs and stuff in it. The thicker yarns tend to do that for some reason, I'm not sure, but isn't that a nice little combination of colour? Or I've got, you know, if you had that blue again, I did a little dye up. I call that dark autumn violet, that colour combination. And then I did the same colours but on a different base, and that ended up a lot lighter. But that would be nice as well. Would that even work with the green? I'm not really sure. But you know, there's a few combinations that would work. Anyway, so that is Splot, which is a highly recommended. I'm very happy. Look at those. These are my old colours. My older yarns. It kind of reminds me when I first started spinning, hand spinning, and I remember when I was learning, people would say to me, you know what, it takes time to get an even yarn, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, all I'm doing is making fat slubby yarn. I can't even show you the first thing I made. It ended up being like a floor rug. But they said one day you'll struggle to do slubs. And I've got to say now that I've actually got to making 200 plus meters per 100 gram yarns, that I can't even remember how I made those thicker yarns. So I'm going to have to relearn that, because I do feel like there's a place for thicker yarns as well. And just got to embrace that, really. I've changed and grown, but those yarns are just nice in their own right. The nice thing about these ones is they're not like the very first yarns that I did, which were quite scratchy. These are mainly Polworth or Corriedale Romney Cross, so they're actually quite nice yarns, and I'm, you know, still proud of those, but we'll see. Okay, so oh, maybe my two little samples can show as well, because I actually did gauge swatches unbelievably. That was my gauge swatch for the Carbeth Cardigan, and you can definitely see the bit of blue mohair in there. For the Carbeth Cardigan, it was less than 600 grams for the whole thing, which included the mohair, but I honestly think I only used like 50 or 60 grams of mohair in that, and it really does add a little bit of depth of colour or change of colour. It also does add another level of softness, but that is still on its own very soft. And I even knit this swatch in the round so I could get that to the correct gauge, and it's very nice. I think I've actually grown a little bit in the last couple of years with my knitting. So there you go. Now let's get on to the mill. So this weekend we have Woolfest, which is the biggest, I think it's the big, I'm sure it's the biggest wool gathering, yarn gathering, creative people coming together, and it's in Auckland, and I have been preparing for that. And once I discovered how to do finer yarns, that really was just this massive focus to try and get enough product to be able to go, okay, I have a choice of some finer yarns for you now. It's not just worsted or Aran weight or chunky weight. I can do a heavy double knit or a 10 to 8 ply, and that has really progressed. So I'm going to start really skiting now and showing you some colors. But before I do that, I want to tell you about the journey to get there. So what happened was I really wanted to work out, what do I do to change the settings? And I did reach out to Julie, who I bought the mill from, but unfortunately she didn't get back to me. So I used the very thing that many people say you should never use, and I used AI. And I had this app that someone recommended called Perplexity, and I used this app and asked very intricate questions, and each time you add a question, it remembered the previous questions that I'd asked, it remembered the machines I was using, and it just kind of built on it. Having said that, it's kind of got to a point now, it will not answer a question unless I sign up, which is $400 a year. That's a lot of money in New Zealand dollars. So I haven't done it. But anyway, I got to that. So I knew that I had to change the settings on the spinner, and so that was something that I had played with all the time. And then one day, by mistake, I actually made my roving too thin. So when I went to see Julie, I'm pretty sure at that point, I mean, I could be wrong in my remembering of it, but she recommended that the roving, when it went up to the spinner, was between 4 and 5 grams per yard. So when it comes out of the pin drafter, you measure a yard and then weigh it, and then from that, I was looking at some settings that Junction Fibre sent me, and then I put it up. And over, it wouldn't work. I had to keep just like start on a minimum setting and then just slightly increase certain numbers until eventually it would take. And the game changer on that was, by mistake, I had put this roving through the pin drafter one too many times, and it was under 3 grams. And I thought, oh, it's never going to spin. But it did. Not only did it spin, it spun up very easily, hardly any breaks, and very fine. So I was like, wow, shall I try that again? So I did, and I repeated it, and I ended up getting, I think I got 190 meters, then I got 200, 210, I actually got 250, and I thought, well, I actually think 250 is too fine for the actual mill. The spinner. But anyway, I might have to cut the spit out. So I've gone from, oh yay, I can make some yarn. Oh yes, it's 110, it's 140, it's 160, it's 190, it's 210. So I'm consistently able to make some yarns now at 200, 210, 220. I don't want to do 250, I don't think. And they're actually, I think, very nice yarns. So maybe I should just show you some colours and talk a little bit about them. Oh, I've got some other things to talk about. Hopefully not going to go on too long. Let me grab the finer yarns to show you. And I'm going to give you an actual example, because last year, now this is a colourway which I called Pansy, Pink Pansy, I think. And this, if you have a look at that yarn there, that's Pink Pansy, and that is 100% Corriedale. So this is shed spun. So shed spun is when I buy a commercial roving, then I unwind it and I dye it in the mill, and then from that I then pin draft it several times, so the pin draft draws it all out, and then I spin it. So this, at this point, I was actually putting it through between 4 and 5 grams per yard, and it is exactly the same colorways as this one here. So when you put it through, and you, instead of doing 4-5, you're actually putting it through the pin drafter and stretching it out more, it goes to, I think this was 2.7 grams per yard. And this here is, I called it floral. I mean, it is exactly the same colorways. This does have more blue, but honestly, within a batch, you're going to see some with blue, some with just pink, some with lots of green and pink. And this is, it says 240 meters per 100 grams. So you can see it actually spreads those colors out a lot more. I mean, they're richer, darker, closer, and those are definitely more spread out. I wonder if I can actually show you. Yeah, so if you have a look here, I mean, that is the, oops, thickness of that yarn. Oh, the focus is ridiculous on this. And then when you look at this little one, look how much thinner. Oops, is that it? How much thinner that yarn is. But oh, just wait here a minute. I'm going to get something. Okay, so I've got it. So this is, it is that pretty in pink, but you can see there's actually a lot more blue in this particular ball of yarn. And that is a gauge swatch that we knitted up so that I can add that to the website. And, you know, you can see it's a lot thicker. And then we did a gauge swatch. So this is 3.75 millimeters, and that one was 4.5 millimeters. The other one, 3.75 millimeters, and so that sort of gradual, the change is much more gradual on this particular skein of yarn. So, you know, progress, thinner, definitely thinner. Yeah, so finer yarn, lots of colors. I really need to show you. So I actually was very lucky. I managed to buy about a half a wool fadge or bale of Romney lamb's wool, and interestingly, I'm told that Romney is quite rough, and I think it can be, but the lamb's wool was not overly rough, and I processed it through the mill and came up with this about, I think about 4 or 5 kilos. I know that doesn't sound like much to most people, but to me that's a big batch. I came up with 4 or 5 kilos of the Romney, and then I did some colouring. So I want to show you the natural colour, and then I'm going to show you some of the colours. But I dyed it. So the natural yarn is this over here, and I've got this one lady, she's so sweet. She's always buying the yarn, and I popped a sample of this in, and I popped another sample. I'll show you the other sample as well. I popped a sample of this in, and she said to me, do you know what? I bought some Romney lamb from somebody, and it was so bad. She said it felt like a scouring pad, but this feels so squishy and nice. So I was so stoked with that feedback. And from that, I've actually dyed a whole bunch of colours up. So some little cakes here to show you the colours. Here's some of those colours. So I've got a few 100 grams, and I've got a few 50-gram cakes. This is also some of the same batch. So, you know, there's a deep blue and pink. They're all kettle dyed, so they're not going to be evenly dyed throughout. This is a pink in that as well. So that's more of a sort of salmon pink. What did I call that? I call this blue sailor. I haven't labelled this, but I'm pretty sure I called that salmon. And I called that fuchsia maybe, I can't remember, or raspberry. And then I've got in the same one a couple of different greens. So there's that sort of muted green, but I also have lime. So you can see there's a good little choice of colors in that little range. And then I think that's about it. The other thing that I did do, I did a multi, and this multi, what did I call this one? So hard to find names. Summer Sunset Waves, I call this. And I've done this same colorway in 3 different bases. So this is the Romney base, and then I did a light Polworth, same colors. So you can see that light one next to it. And then I had, this is my sheep out of the garden, dark Polworth. And then I did that color. So they're all 3 the same colors, but they just look so different when you've got a different base. Yeah, I hope you like that. I really like it. I'm so chuffed. Now this here, the Romney, is 210 meters per 100 grams. So that is definitely a DK weight. It's the heavier end of a DK, but it is a DK weight. And I tried to put some colors together. So that is a Polworth. And I did dye some a sort of mustardy color in the Romney, but those colors go nicely together. And then I have this blue, which is not Romney, but I think they look quite nice together. And yeah, so lots of choices really. Honestly, I'm so excited to show people how much my product has changed in the last year. I've been despondent many times about not being able to have a finer yarn, but it's not only persistent, sometimes you have to make mistakes to actually find out how to do something. And that's part of the creative process, is doing something even though you don't even know if it's going to work. So just turning up, showing up for yourself, getting down in the mill and making something. So these are quite rich. Do you like these rich colors? And then I want to show you, this is a floral one. So this is kind of like an ocean. I have these little collections, so it's like an ocean collection. And then next to that, I've got this one, which is, I call this something like Meadow Wildflower Bouquet. So I've done this exact same one. You can see here a bit of the base color showing through, and that's Polworth from my garden. And actually no, let me look at it. No, that is not Polworth from my garden. That is a Corriedale and alpaca mix. So there's that. And this is another one that I made, and that's in Polworth. So those two go together nicely. Where's that green gone that I had? I had a beautiful green that I was going to show you. So those two go nicely together. You know, you could even add something like this apricot-y colour. That would be really nice together. With the salmon-y colour go with it. You know, it's just, so many people need to do things that got that colour. Lots and lots of ideas. Lots of ideas. I'm really trying to let people get something a little bit different. Small batch, very special. Right, one of the things when I was trying to get the finer yarn was I wanted to put some more shed spun up and do some experimentation with that. And I was trying to put it through the pin drafter, and I would wash it, dye it, well I dye it, wash it, and then dry it and try and put it through the pin drafter, and it would jam even on one strand going through. And if you actually have a look at this, I mean look at this, this came with the machine. They've got 8 cans going in and 1 coming out. And so technically that's what I should be able to do. And I thought, why can't I do that? And when I sort of learned the machines, I mean, this is what happens. A 2-day workshop on learning how to run the machines, an 8-month gap, and then trying to get everything set up after that. I mean, I think it's something like a 4-year, it used to be a 4-year apprenticeship to learn how to run the machines or work in a mill. So I didn't get that, and I couldn't even run one. When we were learning, I'm pretty sure we were shown, there was a very narrow margin between the strands going in and then moving it up a level until you were ready to put it through the spinner. And I couldn't get this one strand through, and I thought, what the heck is going on? So I did this big shout out on We Love Wool New Zealand, and someone answered and said, look, my hubby, he's interested in mills. We don't have a mill, but he's got lots of mill equipment. Can we come and have a look at your mill, and we'll have a look? And so they came, and we had a great little session together. So they drove all the way up from Taumaranui 2 days after I'd put this little, well, I'm going to say cry for help, put it up. Sorry, I'm thirsty. And came and had a look at the mill, and he said to me, oh no, you're running your pin drafter too slowly. You need to crank it up. And I did that. I cranked it up, and it just ran through really, really easily. And so where I was thinking, oh, I'm putting it up too high, it's not going to go through, I should have been doing completely the opposite and cranking it. So after that, I really cranked it. Not only could I get 2 strands through, then I got 4 strands through, then 6 strands through. I haven't tried 8, but I'm pretty sure I could probably get 8 strands through. You just increase the speed. What he also showed me was how to check the weight to get it sort of uniformly up to the spinner. And that was so, oh, just such a game changer. And that was amazing, just made such a difference. So 2 big things was AI helped, people helped, and I'd always had in my mind that one of the problems was my faller bars in the pin drafter. So if you haven't watched this before, kind of like when the roving goes through the pin drafter, part of the roll is there's like part of it which holds it and the other part combs it. And when it does that, it sort of stretches out the fiber and it aligns the fibers more and preps it for spinning. So I've had people say to me, oh, I've got this carded roving here, can you spin it? No, I can't spin it. It has to go through the pin drafter several times. And in fact, if it hasn't gone through the carder properly, I actually have to take it all the way back to the carder and then start putting it through the pin drafter several times, mostly 3 or 4 times, and then it's ready to go up onto the spinner. And what a game changer. So I thought it was that my faller bars, the TPI or the PPI or the pins per inch was too high. It's 21, and everybody else I'd sort of spoken to in the States had 16 or 18. And what I found out since then is that the finer the product that you want to put through, the finer the PPI. And these machines were actually set up for alpaca, and the others are mainly, I think, for sheep. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how much difference it makes, to be honest, but I'm just kind of brainstorming here about it. But a lot of the pins on the faller bars were broken, and initially I thought to myself, I'm going to change the whole set, which I think is 74, I think it's 74, something like that, faller bars which look like combs, knit combs, and completely replace them. The only place I could find to do that was actually a place in India. It took me over 2 years to get a reply back from them, trying different ways of getting hold of them, and then eventually they came back to me and gave me a quote for a full set. And that was, for a full set, I think it was, ended up being $5,000. And at the time that they quoted me, I said, oh, is that it's New Zealand dollars? And they said yes, but when the price came back, it was actually American dollars, and so it ended up being 8,800 New Zealand dollars plus the postage on top, or the shipping on top, which they said was about another $1,000. So at that point I was like, I just don't even have the money for that. I just don't have the resources to do that. And so I backtracked and said, no, what I'd like to do is actually have some replacement bars for the 21 PPI that I've got, and just see how that goes. And so I got 20 faller bars, which was, well, more than $1,000, because it was $1,000 for the bars and then $300 US for the postage. So well over $2,000 for just 20. So it was, you know, it ended up being a lot more expensive, but I have replaced them. That felt really good. And I don't even know if it makes a difference. I think it makes a difference, and if it doesn't, well, my bad. What else happened with the pin draft? Oh yes, there was something else. So a few episodes ago, before Amanda went on maternity leave, at Junction Fibre, they were talking about changing the oil in the worm gears, which are attached to the pin drafter. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been told to do that in terms of maintenance. And so then I contacted my mechanic guy and I said something about that, and he said, oh well, you probably need to do it every so many hours. And they said, I think 2,500 hours. Well, I don't actually know if in 17 years that's ever been changed. And at that point I started getting really nervous about using the machine. You know, ignorance is bliss. I started getting really nervous about using the machines, and contacted my guy Tom, and he said, we've got to get hold of the right oil, and then I'm sure it's not that difficult to do. I'll come along and help you. And so he did. So the oil was like $350 for a container, because you can't buy a litre, you can't buy 2 litres. And on the pin drafter, there's only like, I think 3 worm gears. They're quite essential, but 3 worm gears. And I had to buy a 20 litre, and I think each one takes about 150 to 200 mils. I thought, well, that's going to last me forever. So ordered that, had to wait for it to come. And as I was looking around the mill, I was like, there were other worm gears on the spinner. There was a worm gear on the can coiler, I think it was, as well. And so when Tom eventually came, I was like, man, we've got like 7 or 8 or 9, I can't remember what the number was, but we had quite a few of those to top up. And so I watched what he did, and having watched that, I was like, next time I absolutely know I could do that myself. The whole exercise cost over $1,000, but well worth it. I mean, Tom to me is such a gem, because I don't even know that he really does this stuff specifically, but he has one of those, what are they called, CRC machines or CNC machines. He cuts stuff, but basically if I have any problem, Tom is there and he'll give me a hand with it. So shout out to Tom, thank you very, very much. And the pins are changed, makes a difference. Let's see what happens. So the other product that I've been doing, as I've explained, is I hand dye roving, and then I put it through the pin drafter and spin it, and it's kind of looks like a hand spun. All my yarn kind of looks like a hand spun, because I cannot get it 100% perfect and even like a fully commercial yarn. And so all of that yarn has some character, whether it's the way I've dyed it or whether it's the way that it's been spun. And so the shed spun is basically this commercial roving, and I made a whole load of yarn, which this is it when it's, this is the finer, this is a thicker yarn, and then that's the finer yarn. So these are about 180, 190 meters per 100 grams, whereas when I did them last year, the same colors, they were about 150, 140. Now they're a little bit finer. So that was the Well, that was the same colours as Forest Floor in the autumn, but I honestly think, I feel like all of these have just ended up being sunset colours. And those are the skeins, 100-gram skein. This is the same colours as the, what was it? Oh, the same colours as the Desert, but they're way more spread out as they're, you know, a finer yarn. But what I have done is I've started making these things that I call colour cakes, and it shows you those are those skeins. Right, there's one, there's another, and I'm calling them colour cakes. Can you see that? So you can see there's lots of changes, little colour cakes. Now that here, these are, I think, really, I feel like calling them, all of them sunset colour cakes, because really they're all kind of sunset colours. And then these ones here are the, what I call the ocean colour cakes. So that was what I call deep Tasman blue. So it was the Tasman blue colours, which are sort of the blue greens, and then I added a darker blue as well. So that's a nice little colour cake. This is quite a thickish yarn, and then this is pretty in pink, and so there's a little bit of variation of colour, raspberry coloured. And then this one, I haven't even got a name for it, but really, is it blueberries and raspberries? That's quite thick too. So I've got these three ranges that I'm going to really develop, which I think are the sunsets, the florals, and the oceans. I'm going to work with those. Oops, that's actually a berry one. So those are the little colour cakes. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is I've got to skein this up. I want to get it skeined up before Woolfest, and it is, here it is, this yarn here. I haven't named it, but it is a mustardy colour, but it's the latest yarn that I've done. It's about 210 meters per 100 grams. It is definitely in the DK end of the weight range, or 8 ply as we call it in New Zealand. But this is Corriedale fibre, which I dyed up in that mustard colour, and added to that was merino, which I had in the mill, merino fleece. And I honestly did not think merino would ever go through the mill. But if I blended it up, I blended it up into this, and 50% alpaca, and the rest is sheep wool. It is honestly the softest yarn that I've made, but it's also a very expensive yarn because the actual base products are quite pricey. So I'm going to sell that at Woolfest and see how it goes, but I'm going to have to up the price a tiny bit because, like I say, the base product is a little bit more. Look at that. Definitely, you know, you could put that on a baby. Super soft. So that's all the mill stuff that I can talk about. I've got ready for Woolfest. I added to all of my stress of getting ready for Woolfest by changing from Wix to Shopify, trying to get all that product up. Hannah helped me so much getting the Shopify stuff done, and that has taken probably, I'm going to say, for me personally, more than 100 hours. And then I've got no idea how much time Hannah spent. I think it's quite a bit. But we're almost ready to put the shop up. I've closed it. So I've had a few people contact me saying, your shop's closed. Yes, sorry. But that'll be up soon. And it'll all be ready for Woolfest. I am so excited. I hope I see some people there that, you know, some of my little subscribers, you're not little, you're really important. Some of my subscribers, it was really humbling last year when people said, oh, I watch your podcast. So I'm really just looking forward to saying hello again this year. In fact, we're actually going up on Friday. Last time we went up on Saturday. you know, got ready in about an hour and off we went, and I didn't get a chance to look around. So this time we're going Friday, staying the night, setting up on Friday, and I am going to go and look at everybody else and just, yeah, see what's up there. Probably spend a bit of money as well. So thank you so much for coming along. Do you know what? I do have one more thing. I'm terrible. When I was talking about these colour cakes, I decided to try out my colour cakes, and I downloaded the sea glass cowl. And basically you should be able to use all of your little bits and pieces. But what I've done is I've actually taken one of the colour cakes, and then I'm mixing in lots of other little bits with it. So that's a really good idea for other people as well, to use up leftovers, but also ways of using the colour cakes. So who does the sea glass? Oh, Wool and Pine. But basically, I mean, really, when you look at it, it is linen stitch. So it's a colour work, and you're doing one stitch one colour, one stitch another colour. I did that one. Let me show you. Let me find it. I want to show you that. Where is it? Oh, here it is. So this is also, I did this in the round as a little, and I used a different background, and you can see it's a more muted one, which was, let me find it. It's a more muted one, which was kind of these colour works here, and then I added some brights and neutrals and whatever to that. So I mean, basically what they say is you've got to work out what your palette of colours is, whereas I feel like you could probably just take all of your little bits and pieces and mix it in. But having one of these to do all, you know, the back as a background and then add the colours really does make a difference, because you can actually do, you know, complementary colours, but you can also do contrast colours, and it will look fantastic. So maybe you want to do a little bit of that. Thank you so much for coming along again, and hopefully I'll see a few of you at Woolfest and give you a little update of how it went whenever I manage to come back again. But I appreciate it very, very much. If you want to follow me on Instagram, that'd be amazing. If you're not a subscriber, please click on subscribe and notifications so that it changes my algorithm a little bit, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.